Good morning, everyone. I am Sharnetta J. Harrell, and you are tuning in to Wake Up Wise Intentional Intimacy Part 2 of segment number 6. I know I am a little early, but I just wanted to, just really get the day started. And so I'm very, very excited to be here with you this morning. And I cannot wait to get started. So I know that many of you probably are like, why is she starting so early? Like, I'm going to miss it. But as always, the video will be posted to my YouTube channel for your review. So let's jump right on into it. I hope that you are having a swell weekend thus far. And I'm just very, very excited and just cannot wait to get back into the swing of things. I know it feels like, forever. Since I have been behind the screen doing a live stream, but I've had a lot of transitions going on. It's just really been a season of transition, but God is sovereign and He is good and He is well. So I am back. Okay, so if this is your first time tuning in to Wake Up Wise, I want to welcome you, and I certainly want to thank you for taking some time out to just stop by and just to see some of the things that we talk about here. So if you're new to Wake Up Wise is it's a segment, right? It is a live video shoot that is done every other Saturday morning with the hope to empower millennial wives to get in the know before they go. Some of us are very busy with just life, church activities, with our spouse, with the kids. And so Wake Up Wise is really an opportunity for you to be empowered before you start the busy weekend. Okay, so let's jump right on in. Again, I want to welcome everyone. I just want to thank you for your time. Wake Up Wives is about, 20 to 30 minutes. And so, as always, I want to encourage you to be interactive, to ask questions along the way. And I will certainly do my best, as always, to answer them in the best way possible. Great. So if you tuned in to part 1 of Intentional Intimacy, you know that August was the month that I wanted to focus on intimacy in marriage, right? When we talk about sex and when we talk about intimacy, sometimes it can be very taboo, right? And that's just not really a topic or an area that people are open to discussing, and it's not really in the church, we don't really talk about that. We might, touch, a little bit of it, but we're not really talking about some of the real issues and just sex and intimacy, period, right? So in a culture that, uses sex inappropriately, I really wanted to do a 2-part series on intentional intimacy, just God's way, and just, really how to honor God with being intimate intentionally with our husbands, right? So before I jump right on in, if this is your first time, my name is Sharnetta J. Harrell, and I empower millennial wives to peel back their layers one day at a time, to live and to love on purpose. So just before I get started, I also want to remind you that if you follow me on social media, and if you don't follow me on social media, you can find me on Instagram using at Sharnetta J. Harrell. And there you will also find my link tree with all of my links to my website, my blog, and of course the Wake Up Wives YouTube channel. Throughout the week, my segments definitely have changed. And so September the 25th, I will be launching something huge. So I really cannot wait to share that with the world and to share that with many of my supporters. I've really been working hard. My team has been working hard. And so I really cannot wait to launch that on my birthday. So just be looking out for that to come. Again, if this is your first time, welcome. And I am a blogger, right? But even in the midst of being a blogger and even in the midst of doing live segments, my overall goal is to be an online wife life resource. When my husband and I first got married, there were not a lot of resources for millennial wives. And so along the time, I was able to reach out to other resources. And then, in the midst of it, I said, wow, I want to be an online wife life resource for millennial wives. So that's who I am. I am an upbeat social worker by day. I am the founder of Sisters in Christ's Kingdom. And I'm an online wife life resource who empowers millennial wives to peel back their layers, right? So if you want to check any of those things out, please head over to Linktree, and you can check those things out, right? So let's jump right on in. The 4 P's of intentional intimacy. This is part 2 of intentional intimacy for the month of August. Again, I want to welcome everyone. And if you have any questions, any concerns, anything that you would like to add, please feel free to do so, and we can talk about it, right? I really want this to be an open dialogue, full of transparency and just, pure rawness, right? So let's jump right on into it. So the 4 P's of intentional intimacy. The first point that I'm going to begin to talk about today is partnership. Partnership. Whenever we talk about intimacy and whenever we talk about engaging in sexual intercourse with our spouse, right? We want to die to self, right? That is what the Lord commands us to do. And so, a lot of times when we hear partnership, we're like, what does that mean? What does companionship mean? What does it mean to really be a partner to my spouse, right? And so partnership is about putting their needs, before your own, right? And so when we find ourselves doing that, when it comes to intimacy and when it comes to having sex, even when we're tired, right? Because let's just be real, right? As women, we're tired. We're doing a lot. We're working. For those who have children, just our mental state, right? We are tired, right? And so there are times, where you might come home and, your husband is ready to go, right? And you're tired. But when we think about partnership and when we think about, really dying to self and being able to put our spouse's needs before our own, that is partnership, right? And that is how we really glorify God. Not only about sex and intimacy, but just our spouse's needs, period, right? So I'll even take it a step further. So even with communication, right? When my husband and I first got married, everybody was preaching communication, right? But the reality of it is, even with communication, sometimes, when I come home, I'm tired, right? I'm tired. I really don't feel like being bothered. I just probably just want to sit down, log on social media and just tune out, or, get Netflix, and get some ice cream and just tune out, right? But what does the Lord tell us to do? To put our spouse's needs before our own, right? So that means that even if I'm tired, even if I don't feel like it, that means when my husband steps foot in the door, babe, how was your day? Babe, I'm so glad to see you. Babe, thank you so much for being a provider. Babe, thank you so much for just being here for me. Thank you for coming home to me. You know what? Thank you for making love to me. Thank you for, just being obedient, So that is how we should be able to greet our spouse. And that is how we become a partner, right? When both individuals do that, that is when we really become a partner to our spouse. Currently, our pastor is doing this a series on blended families, and last week, he really provided an illustration, that was very powerful to me, and it was really an illustration about a triangle. It was a triangle, and on the two ends of the triangle, it talked about myself, and it talked about my husband, and then at the top of the triangle, it was God, right? So when we draw closer to, when we move further away from ourselves, we draw closer to God, right? And so that means that we are always, we should be always walking in our conviction, right? So partnership, that is the first P of part 2 of intentional intimacy, okay? Point number 2, participate. Right? Participate. One of the things that, I have really found that works best, that really, puts me in the good mood to be intimate with my husband. And, the first segment, if you, are kind of struggling with knowing the differences between sex and intimacy, I really want you to go back to the first video that I did. And I really broke down the differences between, sex and the difference between intimacy, right? Those are two totally different things. So we're talking about, point number 2, and we're talking about, participation. Whenever we go on a date, right, or whenever we, are intentional about spending time with our spouse, dress up, right, put the phones up, right? Those are the types of things that we need to begin to participate in, because if we are not participating with our spouse, we're not being intimate. Right? Intimacy doesn't begin in the bedroom, okay? Intimacy starts in the home, and intimacy really starts in the heart, right? So intimacy is not always, having sex like rabbits, right? Intimacy is, in fact, the ability to be able to emotionally connect, with your spouse. So always be willing to participate, and always be willing to step outside of your comfort zone for your partner. Again, I think participation, is huge, right? It's huge with our partner. And in marriage, going on, my husband and I are going, into year 3, we're currently in year 2, but, we're always learning. We're always learning, always growing. And so I think that the ability to really be able to participate and to tune in with your spouse, it will go a long way. And when we begin to participate and listen and hear our husband's needs, that is when, we become more attracted to our spouse. And that's when he becomes more attracted to us, in essence, right? Great. So you guys are quiet today. Normally I have lots of questions and, lots of different things going on, but, I'll be patient because I know that it will come. Okay. Point number 3, practice. So, I think this is an area that, we are not talking about enough. Practicing how to be intentional in intimacy is huge, right? So even when we begin to explore new things with our spouse in our, intimate life, in our, sex life, we have to really begin to not only implement and apply these things, but we have to know how to really practice those things. Right? So just like now, I'm sitting here, I'm empowering you, but none of that really means anything if we're not practicing that, right? So, even just talking for myself, I listen to, lots of podcasts. I read a lot of books. I do a lot of these things, but none of those things really mean anything if I am not practicing and applying and implementing those things with my spouse, right? So again, that goes back to walking in conviction. If I'm yelling at my husband, for not taking the trash out, and he missed the trash truck, or, if I am, fussing at him because he didn't clean, the counter the way that I would like to, I should be convicted about that. Why? Number 1 is minute, right? It's something small, it's not really that deep, and I have to always remind myself of that. Shanetta, it's not that deep. Right? It's really not that serious, for you to be going off, and fussing your husband out, because of his lack of, doing things that, because it's not up to my standard, right? So when we talk about intimacy, when we talk about intimacy, it's the same thing. Right. So one of the things that, when we first got married, one of the things that our premarital counselors really talked about was trying new things, in the area of sex when it comes to marriage, right? Because when we look at the divorce rates and we look at, just research, finances and intimacy and sex are the 3 leading things that, really leads, people to draw away from each other. And, the reality of it is marriage is ministry. Marriage is ministry. And we don't want to, do anything that does not glorify God. And, of course, there is no condemnation in Christ. But, I really want to, really dive into my husband and really, practice what I am, preaching in essence, right? So explore new things, right? Explore new things and try new things. Try new positions. Let's just be honest. If you and your spouse are used to, missionary, you might communicate to your spouse and you might say, hey, babe, I'm tired of that. Or, like, let's try, something else different. You might try a new position and, you might like it. And this really goes back to communication, right? This really goes back to communicating your needs. Although we, are putting our spouse's needs before our own, we also have to communicate our needs, right? My husband, even with intimacy, sex, and even other areas of our lives, if we are not communicating what we need, how can we really put each other's needs before our own, right? So even if we are tired, even if we are so exhausted, there are days, where I come home and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Like, it's 5 o'clock and I'm tired, right? So, sometimes I have to say, babe, just give me 5 minutes, right? Give me 5 minutes to get myself together. Give me 5 minutes to process. Give me 5 minutes to pray. Give me 5 minutes just to get it together, right? And so as we move into point, number 4, patience. Patience. And I really want to take some time to talk about patience, right? So when we are talking about patience in the area of intimacy, patience is key, right? The reality is that, even in the area of patience, even in the area of sex, let's just be honest. Let's just be honest, right? Although the Lord tells us and commands us to be to abstain from sex before marriage, right? The reality is everybody does not have that story, right? We may have wanted that story, but the reality is everybody does not have that story. Every couple doesn't have that story. Every woman didn't save herself for marriage, and every man didn't, save theirself for marriage, right? Is that necessarily right? No, but that's just the reality of what it is, okay? So even in the area of patience, right? Being patient with your spouse. Some of us, may have married someone who is more, I would say experienced in that area. And some of us, may not be as experienced ourselves, right? And so we have to know and to be patient and to communicate with our spouse about our intimate and our sexual needs and our sexual desires, right? So I do have, Rebecca says, communicating needs is so important but difficult for me. I expect my husband to know what I want or need without saying it out loud. Great. This is awesome, Rebecca. So let's break this sentence down. So if anyone knows me, you will know that I like to really empower women to peel back the layers and to really dissect what they are saying, right? Because I do call myself an active listener. So let's look at this sentence. Communicating needs is so important. So Rebecca is already acknowledging that communication is important, right? But then she says, but difficult for me, right? So she's already admitting she's being vulnerable. She's already saying it's hard for me. So if you are like Rebecca, and this is for Rebecca, why is it so difficult for you to communicate your needs? What is it about communicating your needs that's hard? Is it talking about your needs? Is it communicating, period? Is it fear of rejection? What did you grow up seeing? Did your mom communicate her needs to your father? And vice versa? So then she says, I expect, right? I expect my husband to know what I want or need without saying it out loud, right? So she is saying, I expect my husband to know, which means to know in his mind, right? So this is saying that when she's communicating her needs, or if she's not communicating her needs, she's doing that with expectancy that her husband is going to know, right, or want, without saying it out loud. This is a huge thing that many women deal with. I can even say that, I, kind of, can, also agree with that as well. Good morning, Angel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Just jump right on in. And I think that this is when we come to marriage, that this is when we really have to begin to peel back our layers, because the reality is we expect our husband to read our minds, right? And if he ain't reading our minds, then we ain't really feeling it, and you ain't getting none, right? So and let's just be real, right? So, Rebecca, I really want to challenge you tonight. I really want to challenge women who are participating on this. I really want you to take a piece of paper, right? And I really want you to take a piece of paper. On the front of the piece of paper, I want you to write down what you witnessed growing up, seeing, and how it was communicated. So Rebecca, on your piece of paper, I want you to take a piece of paper and write down how your mother, what you saw, how you saw your mother communicating her needs to your father, right? And on the back of that piece of paper, I want you to write down how you communicate your needs to your husband. And when we do that, I really want you to see the similarities and the differences in that. You might find that you have a lot of similarities, right, with that. Because the reality is, what if you didn't grow up, what if you did grow up seeing your mom not communicating those needs? It's kind of like the same thing of what you're doing now, right? So that is what we have to do. We have to recognize that, we have to own that, and then we have to begin to practice, right? We have to begin to practice new things, right? And so, Angel says, yes, he is supposed to know. He's not supposed to know, right? He's not supposed to know. And this is why I really want to challenge you guys, right? So, again, our husbands are physical beings. Our husbands are physical beings. They were put on this earth to provide, to protect, and to profess, right? Us women, we are natural nurturers, right? We are natural nurturers, and we are loving. We express our emotions. We're verbal. We just put it all out there. We're crying. We're emotional. We're talking about it, right? That's not what most men do. Okay. And the reality of it is, maybe that's not what some women do either, but this is the point that I want to make. We cannot assume that our husbands know what's going on with us. Okay. And, I think that this is, it's not a mistake that most women make. It is I would like to say it's a journey. It is a journey because, I can even attest to that. Let's say, I'm tired, right? I come home and I'm tired, and, I go upstairs, I'm laying down, and, my husband, was like, hey babe, what's wrong? And I'm like, you should know what's wrong, right? You should know what's wrong. I'm laying here, I'm tired. Like, you should know what's wrong with me. So I'm not going to say anything, and I'm not going to communicate my needs to you, because you should know what my needs are in this moment. I want you to rub my feet. I want you to go get me some ice cream. I want you to, cut on the movie The Notebook, and I just want you to leave me alone, right? Our husbands don't know that, right? And although we expect that, but the reality of it is he's not programmed to think that way, right? So with my husband is saying, oh my God, what is wrong with her? What's going on? What happened? What's going on? Because he's a natural protector and he's a natural provider. But the reality of it is he's not naturally a nurturer, right? And so, but versus us, if our husbands come home, we have it back there. We're like, babe, what's wrong? What happened? Babe, you can do it. You're great, right? Because we're programmed differently, right? We're programmed differently. So Rebecca, I want to challenge you to do that and let me know how it goes. I'm going to hold you to that. Okay. So Angel says, I know, LOL, but I used to expect him to know and fix it. But we actually sat down and wrote down our marriage goals. Great. And we're vulnerable with our expectations. And since then, we have had better communication. But at first, I would just get mad if he did not know. That's great. That is perfect. And I think that, it really says a lot about your marriage when you're both able to be vulnerable, and when both of you are able to really come together and to talk about your marriage goals, right? What are your marriage goals when it comes to intimacy? What are your marriage goals when it comes to communication? What are your marriage goals, period? What are your marriage goals financially? What are your marriage goals, for kids? What are your marriage goals, to God, right? So that Angel, I really want to commend you guys for that. That's great. And I think it's important. I think the last thing you said, is real. I would just get mad if he did not know. But I want to empower you to peel back your layers on that, to get to the core and to get to the root of that. Why would you get mad when he did not know? What is it that you were looking for? What is it that you were that you wish that you had? What was it about him that you wanted him to know? So I really want to challenge you to just reflect on that a little bit, and to really see where that is coming from. I can even say for myself, I don't really have a relationship with my, biological father. So, when my husband and I first got married, there were a lot of things that, I didn't like. There were a lot of things that, so for example, submission was very hard for me. When we went through premarital counseling, submission was probably, when you say submission, it's like, saying slavery. All right. But the reality of it is, that's not, what submission is, by any means, right? So I really want to, challenge you guys to, really think about some of the areas that are very hard for you and some of the areas that are very difficult for you, right? And so what I wanted to say, going back to, the whole father thing is, I really had to peel back my layers. And say, Shanetta, what is it about submission that it bothers me? What is it about submission that makes me uncomfortable? And for me, it was because submission was not something that I had experienced. It was not something that, I didn't grow up in a Cosby Show, family. And so, growing up with, very strong women in my life, I felt like being submissive to my husband was actually a weakness. And so that was an area in marriage, where, I really struggled, and sometimes I still struggle. Okay. And so what I also had to realize was that, submission God's way, is actually strength, right? So my husband is doing all the work, right? Because he has to be accountable to the Lord. And so all I have to do is just trust that he is submitting himself, to Christ. And, the rest will follow. So I know that if my husband is connected to the word and that my husband is connected to God, then that means that I can trust his leadership. And that means I can submit to his leadership because he's submitting to God's leadership. Right. And so there's actually a lot of strength in submission, right? There's actually a lot of strength. So I know I kind of went off course, there, but, I feel like that's helping somebody. Right. So let's go back to, let's just review the 4 P's, very quick. So the 4 P's that we talked about was partnership, participation, practice, and patience, right? Yes. Yeah, that's good. Yes, that was good. I think, I really want to talk a little bit more about submission, maybe in the next segment. I think submission is not something that, it's hard, right? Submission is very hard, really submitting ourselves is one of the hardest things that I think, women have to do when it comes to marriage, because the reality of it is, we feel like we're losing a part of ourselves, right? We feel like we're losing a part of who we are. But that's what marriage is. We do lose a part of who we are, right, in Christ, because marriage is ministry. And, I have to learn how to put my husband, before myself, and vice versa. I know that to this day that my husband will, jump in front of a bullet for me. He will, do everything that he can to make sure that I am safe and that I am well. But that also has to mean that I must be willing to lay down my life for him as well. And I think that the assumption, growing up is that, men should do everything, right? They should take out the trash. They should protect us. They should, squish spiders. They should, that's what men should do. Right? But the reality of it is, men were created, out of God's image, and the same for us. And, all we have to do is follow. All we have to do is follow. And guess what? Even if he messes up, even if, his leadership, even if something didn't happen, the way, maybe that, you guys had planned out, don't hold it against him. Don't rub it in his face, right? You just say, it is well, babe, and I got you, and we good. Right? That's all you have to say. You don't have to say, I told you so. I told you that the store was not, over there. I told you, to make a left turn, but you wanted to make a right turn. And yep, told you so. Right? That's not, we can't do that. Right? Many of us do it. I've done it. Sometimes I still do it. Let's just be real. But the reality of it is I'm convicted when I do it, right? Because I'm like, that's not really glorifying God. Like, let me reel it back, So, Angel says men should do all the quote hard work. I dislike that assumption so much. Yes. That is definitely an assumption. I think that is a cultural thing that we have, kind of made up in our own minds. And it's something that, our society tells us that men, should do, all of the hard work and all of these gender roles, right? But the word of God is true. And I really want to encourage you guys to really, look biblically at what a man's role and what our role is, right? Because the reality of it is, just like I was telling you guys, about that triangle that, our pastor, talked about, last Sunday, is that when we grow further from ourselves, we grow closer together in Christ. Right. And so, even if that means, this past week, my husband and I, are trying to be very, very intentional about quiet time and very, very intentional about family time, right? So that means that, just carving out 20 minutes, 20 or 30 minutes a day, in the afternoon to really dive in together, and read God's word. We started a devotional, using the Bible app. It's very simple. And, we started a marriage devotional, and nothing has to be broke, right, for you to pour into your marriage. So it's just like glass, right? It's just like a cup of glass. If we take a cup of, glass and it's broke, we got to fix it. So don't wait until your marriage is broke and you got to fix it, right? Keep pouring into it. Keep pouring into it. Right? Keep pouring into it. I always preach about date night, making date night a priority. If nothing else have worked other than prayer, because that is the foundation of what we stand on. Date night is crucial, right? Sometimes you got to say no to things, to make sure that you're tuned into each other. This week was, crazy for my husband and I. And, today, we really said, what, we're going to turn our phones off. We're going to, get something, fattening to eat, and we're going to really enjoy each other, right? We're just really going to enjoy each other. We're going to enjoy the weather. We're going to enjoy the birds. We're going to practice some mindfulness, and we are really going to tune into each other, right? So I know that I went way off topic today. I went way off topic, but, this is why I enjoy doing this, ladies. This is why I enjoy doing it. This is why, I love to be live because, for me, it really gives me an opportunity to be authentic with you and for you to see that I am just like you. I'm human. I make mistakes. I'm flawed. And I'm learning just like you are. And so, I'm very thankful for the Holy Spirit and, his words that were given to me today. And I'm so glad that you guys were able to tune in. It is so wonderful to have such meaningful dialogue, though. So encouraging. Thank you, Rebecca, for that. I really want to thank you all for your ongoing support in this journey. Again, I have been working on something very big for September the 25th. Not only is it my birthday, but I will be launching something very, very big, and I'm very excited about that. On my birthday, I will have new segments, so be looking out for that. And so I'm very, very excited, very, very excited for where the Lord is taking this. And, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't, have anything to do, right? So, again, if you are just tuning in, this video will be to my YouTube channel. You can head over to YouTube. All you have to do is type in Sharnetta Harrell, and there you will find all of my Wake Up Wise segments for today and the previous ones that I've done in the past. Again, you can also head over to my Instagram and look for my Linktree link. There you will find my blog post. You will find it will take you straight to my YouTube channel. You can find my Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook page. Also, if you have not liked my Facebook page, head over to Sharnetta J. Harrell and like it. And there you will get some updates about upcoming blog posts, upcoming Wake Up Wise, and much, much, much more. Right? So, partnership, participation, practice, patience. Those are my 4 P's for today. So again, we are going on 36 minutes. I know I'm way over time. I know I'm normally like, 30 minutes, but sometimes it's just good just to, get off topic and, just to communicate with you guys and just to have some transparent dialogue. So again, just wrapping up, be tuning in September 25th for that. Also be looking out for my upcoming Wake Up Wise session. Wake Up Wise is every other Saturday in the morning for your opportunity to get in the know before you go. I also want to encourage you guys, if you are in the Atlanta or Raleigh area, there is a tour that's coming up from 2 of my dearest classmates, Dr. Eve Hudson and Debbie London. They are launching the Purpose and Healing Tour, and that will take place in Atlanta and in Raleigh. So you can head over to purposeandhealing.com. In Raleigh, I will be there October the 22nd to support them. And so if you are in either locations, please get your tickets and support the movement. So again, my name is Sharnetta J. Harrell. I am an online wife life resource, and I am empowering millennial wives to peel back their layers one day at a time. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in and everyone who commented. And I will see you again later, and be looking out for the upcoming announcements. Have a good Saturday, ladies. Bye.